In a country where duplicate names abound, therein lies the birth of the infamous CURP. It is especially helpful to the police when a crime occurs and Jane Doe did it, but that's your name, and your aunt's name, and probably your cousin's name too. In this video, I will walk you through what a CURP is, why it's useful, what it's made of, and how to get it, print it, or correct it. Timestamps, as always, are in the description. Before we get to getting, an introduction is in order. Hey friend, my name is Aaliyah, and the goal with this channel is to help with all things Mexico. So consider subscribing. After moving to Mexico ourselves and having to figure everything out on our own, my husband and I now make it our goal to make things in Mexico sound not so foreign to foreigners who may be living in Mexico. So whether you're just visiting, passing through, or establishing roots, join the journey and let's get mixed in Mexico. Now to the business. The CURP, what is it? Well, it's an acronym for Clave Única de Registro de Población, which is a unique population identifier given to every Mexican citizen, national, and legal resident. Some people compare it to a social security number in the States, but I don't know if I agree because it's not specifically for tax purposes, and that's more of the RFC's job, which I'll make a future in-depth video on. Maybe I'd compare the CURP more so to a driver's license number in the United States. It's an individual population identifier that sometimes is needed for various applications, which leads us to the next question. What is a CURP used for? Besides being a helpful tool for authorities when a crime is committed by a common named individual, an individual's CURP is needed when applying for various things in Mexico, such as an RFC, driver's license, a job, bank account, even health insurance in Mexico. And all of these things are things that I'll make future in-depth videos on. So again, you may want to subscribe. Just saying. What is the CURP made of? In short, it is an 18-digit alphanumeric code that is comprised of what makes you, you. Your name, your date of birth, your gender, your place of birth, along with what I might call Mexican randomness to prevent duplication. And why might it be useful to know the formulation of the CURP? Well, if you need your CURP and don't have it on you or can't remember it, it might prove helpful to actually know the formula of the CURP. And it's kind of just cool to know, if I'm being honest. What's inside of the CURP? Well, let's look at an example of John Davis, who was born on July 15th, 1977 in the state of Wyoming of the USA. The first 4 digits of the CURP are letters from your full name. The first is the first letter of your first last name, or according to Mexico, your paternal last name. If the first letter of this last name begins with an ñ, the letter X is usually used. Next is the first vowel of that same last name, and if the last name doesn't have a vowel, the letter X is used. Next is the first letter of your second name, or according to Mexico, your maternal last name, which most foreigners don't have, so an X is usually placed there. And next is the first letter of your first name. And Mexico generally takes the assumption that the first letter of all your names is a consonant. The next 6 digits of your CURP are numbers of your date of birth in the format of 2 digits for the year, 2 digits for the month, and 2 digits for the day. And the next digit is to identify your gender. H is for hombre, or man, and M is for mujer, or woman. The next 2 digits of the CURP will identify your place of birth. That's on your birth certificate. And all individuals who were not born in Mexico will have the letters NE here, for nacido en el extranjero. But if you were born in Mexico, and that's what the birth certificate says, you will use one of these codes on the screen to identify which part of Mexico you were born in. The next 3 letters of your CURP goes back to your name, assuming that all your names start with consonant. The next digit is the next consonant of your first last name, or in some cases, your only last name. If it is an ñ or another consonant doesn't exist in this last name, the letter X is used. The next letter is the next consonant of your second last name that you may or may not have. And it's the same as with the previous. If it is an inye or it doesn't exist, the letter X will be used here. And the next letter is the next consonant of your first name, which is the same story as before. If it's an inye or it doesn't exist, the letter X is used here. And the last two digits of the CURP are what I call a hint of Mexican randomness to prevent duplication. And I do say randomness because there's honestly no hard and fast rule, to my knowledge at least, of why you have what you have here. Maybe this is Mexico's way of making sure people don't just generate their own CURP, I guess, using this formula. Who knows? The only sure thing that I do know is that the first of these two digits is either a number, 0 through 9 if you were born up into the year 1999, or a letter there, A to Z, if you were born in or after the year 2000. And the last digit beats me, I do not know. Are there any exceptions to the formula? Well, according to the Annexo or Exhibit 2 on page 62 of the Normative Instructions for assigning a CURP, linked below of course, if the first 4 letters of your CURP would normally spell an inappropriate word like vaca, caca, loca, or way, to name a few, the first vowel or second letter of the CURP would be substituted with an X. Also, if you have a special character or an accented letter where it would normally be used in your CURP, sometimes that's also substituted with an X, or the accent is just simply taken off. And lastly, for an exception, and kind of oddly, the first names Jose and Maria are commonly ignored when constructing CURPs, maybe because they're just very common in Mexico. In those cases, they usually use your second given name or your middle name if you have one when constructing your CURP. What about if you're not a Mexican citizen or a lawful resident and you need a CURP for handling business in Mexico? Well, there's a generic CURP for that. The generic CURP for men is here on the screen. And the generic CURP for women is here on the screen. The only difference is the designator for gender that we just talked about, H for hombre or M for mujer. How does one even go about getting a CURP? As a citizen, it is generally on your birth certificate because it's given at the time you register your birth with the Mexican government. And for legal residents, whether temporary or permanent, it is generally on your resident card because it's typically issued on the day you attain your residency status in Mexico. If you don't see it as a Mexican citizen on your birth certificate, you can go to your preferred Registro Civil office. And if you don't see it as a lawful resident on your resident card, you can go to your local INM office. I'm going to link below a helpful resource that'll help you obtain your CURP in this case, which lays out all the necessary documents and paperwork you'll need to bring with you to your specific office appointment, whichever one that may be. If you already have a CURP though, how do you go about finding and printing it when you need it? Well, when you're filling out certain applications in Mexico, they require sometimes a physical printout of your CURP. How do you get it? In short, by going to the website on the screen right now, typing in your information, downloading it, and then printing it. I'll make a future short, maybe step-by-step video of me actually going through the process with you. So stick around, maybe subscribe if you want to see that. And I will say it might be beneficial to know how to actually access and print your CURP because every 3 to 6 years, the secretary name that's on your CURP changes. And some offices, when you're filling out applications, will require the most up-to-date version of your CURP. So, kind of important. What if there's a mistake on your CURP? Or you get an error message when typing in all your correct information? I'm going to also leave a helpful resource and website in the description portion of the video below that'll spell out everything you'll need to be able to do at the office to correct that error. That's a lot, right? Let's do a quick recap of everything we just learned. The CURP stands for Clave Única de Registro de Población, and it is a unique population identifier given to every Mexican citizen, national, and legal resident. Your CURP will be necessary for lots of different applications for everyday living in Mexico, and it is an 18-digit alphanumeric code that uses your name, date, and place of birth, as well as a hint of Mexican randomness. And although only citizens and residents can have their own CURP, There is a generic one given for tourists and foreigners who may require it. And if you are a citizen or a resident and don't have one, or there's an error, you can go to the Registro Civil office or the INM office to fix the problem. And after which, you'll be able to happily locate and print your CURP when you need it. I hope all of this information was helpful, and if it was, feel free to like the video or share it with someone you think may benefit from it. I do make it my goal to provide you with the nitty-gritty of the details. But have fun in the sun, friends. Enjoy the process. Hasta pronto. See you soon. Nos vemos.